So once we have an understanding of the different types of mobile devices that are out there and the different ways that we can deliver mobile services, we should understand, what does the mobile market look like? After all, we don't want to spend too much time or money developing an application for a platform that is used by maybe only 2% of the population. We want to target a larger demographic. So what we have are some statistics that come directly from the TRA. These reflect the actual state of the mobile market in the UAE throughout the third quarter of 2013 through the first quarter of 2014. We start by looking at this pie chart of the third quarter of 2013. We will see that there is a majority of feature phones in the market at that time. And if we look at what the most popular smartphones are during that time, we will see that the top three are the iPhone 5, the Samsung Galaxy S3, and the iPhone 4S. So of the top three, 2 iPhones, 1 Android. Proceeding into the fourth quarter of 2013, we had a major change happen in this country. Suddenly, the majority of the mobile market was smartphones, no longer feature phones. However, if we look at the top 3 smartphones at that time, still they remain the iPhone 5, the Samsung Galaxy S3, and the iPhone 4S. Still 2 iPhones, 1 Android. Moving into the first quarter of 2014, we see a slight growth in the smartphone market. However, even though this is a subtle growth, it does show that the change from the past 2 quarters was not an anomaly. There is a continuing trend of the market moving away from feature phones and into smartphone devices. We also saw something new in the fourth quarter of 2013, and we'll see a major change here when we look at the top 3 devices for the first quarter of 2014. That new entry into the fourth quarter of 2013 was the iPhone 5S. And now suddenly, even though we still have in the top 3 2 iPhones and 1 Android, the 4S has been replaced with the 5S. In fact, if we look at this chart of how the phones have grown over the 3 quarters, the iPhone 5S stands out remarkably because since the fourth quarter of 2013 to the first quarter of 2014, the number of 5S devices in the market has more than doubled. In fact, if we look at this pie chart of the number of different manufacturers that are out there, as of the fourth quarter of 2013, we will notice that there are, for the Apple devices, there's only 4 of those. 4S, 5, 5S, and 5C. Of the 4 iPhone devices you could purchase from a retailer at that time, there were 4 iPhones. Whereas the larger population of Samsung devices, much more than 4. We could spend a considerable amount of time listing off each and every single one of them. Moving into the first quarter of 2014, we notice that Apple and Samsung are growing, whereas the market share for BlackBerry and Nokia is shrinking. This coincides with what we had seen in trends in the past charts. iPhones, Androids, there's a trend of those newer devices growing, whereas the trend of BlackBerries and Nokia devices are beginning to decline. In fact, if we look at the total population of phones in the market, not just the smartphones, we will see that although we have 2 iPhones and 1 Android for the top smartphones, actually the top overall phones is 1 smartphone and 2 feature phones. And that is because even though newer devices with newer capabilities are still very much in demand, still one of the largest drivers of purchasing a phone is going to be the price. And when it comes to the price of feature phones compared to smartphones, feature phones will always be cheaper because they lack the technological capabilities of smartphones. And this trend continues on into the first quarter of 2014, where we see this same situation applies. However, we do notice that there are less feature phones represented than there are smartphones. So where is the trend heading in this country? Clearly it's heading to smartphones, And as far as the platforms go, remember, we're seeing growing trends among iPhones and Androids.